Uh-oh.
It's the same with Caroline Dubois. We said to Ben Shalom, let's make Caroline Dubois Beatrice Ferreira for Spurs.
Beatrice Ferreira.
Listen, we're going to get to her. I believe stylistically she's the toughest challenge at my weight.
Oh yeah, let me put that to the McGuigans, of course. And to be fair to Caroline, she's openly come out and said Beatrice is much too good for her at the moment. And I think that's honourable.
Just looking at it from a distance on a paper, I think she's the toughest challenge. I would love to save that girl to last.
But you can't be calling out other fighters and then saying they won't take the fight. And when Beatrice Ferreira, I don't want a purse for Beatrice Ferreira. Caroline Dubois hasn't got an opponent for March 7th. I will provide Beatrice Ferreira.
And that she's spiteful like you as well.
Stylistically.
Yeah.
Just going to style it.
For free. Just give us the Brazilian TV rights, which is, worthless to that show. And we're in for that fight. Unification.
Save it till last.
When I think because of that, and I think that it can be a bigger, that's not a co-main fight, it's a head main.
So while she's shouting across the aisle at Terry Harper, who she called a coward, she called Terry a coward.
No, we want to save Beatrice for last. That could be bigger. It could be built.
You could make the exact same argument for a Terry Harper fight. You genuinely could. That could be built into a main event unto itself.
Carolyn doesn't want Beatrice now. It's because underneath it all, she knows it's a dangerous fight. It's more dangerous than any of the fights she is looking for, like the Dixon fight and the Harper fight after that. She's looking for the low-hanging fruit. She's not going to say that.
Well, she's calling Terry Harper a coward.
Come on, you see how uneasy she gets when Beatrice's name is brought up. You see how she clams up.
Eddie Hearn called it honorable. That Carolyn, in so many words, is saying she's not ready for Beatrice yet. I don't think it's honorable, not while you're the one calling someone else a coward. And listen, I don't even know that Beatrice Ferreira wins that fight. All I know is that Beatrice is willing to have it now, and Carolyn is not. That's all I know. So what does that tell you? Maybe Carolyn wins, maybe she doesn't. But either way, she doesn't want to know.
So what might need to happen now, since Carolyn isn't having any luck with Terry, and she doesn't really want Beatrice, is Eddie might need to make a fight between them.
Between Terry and Beatrice, because they both are his fighters. It's one thing for Carolyn not to get a Terry Harper fight. Carolyn's over there at Boxer. You're on another side of the street.
But Beatrice is right there on the same side of the street as Terry, and she wants unification matches too.
An alternative. Later on next month, on the 22nd, Stephanie Hahn from right here in America will be boxing for the newly vacated WBA title. I anticipate Stephanie is going to win that fight, and she will become the latest fighter to be crowned a champion at this weight. That is someone that Eddie can target for either Terry Harper or Beatrice Ferreira, a potential unification match between Stephanie Hahn and one of his fighters.
The problem.
Caroline Dubois might do the same thing. She's just as capable of targeting Stephanie Hahn as Eddie and his girls. Another belt to add to the collection. It's just the question of who's going to beat who to the punch. Who'll get to Stephanie Hahn first? I believe that those conversations should be happening now. That if they haven't already gotten in contact with Stephanie Hahn, should she win February 22nd, they need to.
Get her on a phone. Open up a dialogue. Have some preliminary conversations.
Carolyn is waiting Beatrice Ferreira out. Because she knows Beatrice is a few years older than she is, so she's waiting her out, waiting for her to slow down, waiting for Father Time to catch up. And I wouldn't call that honorable. That's what we saw Gervonta Davis do to Vasyl Lomachenko for a number of years. Avoiding that fight, waiting good up until the guy's considering retirement before you want to face him.
Coward.
So what are we supposed to say when Carolyn is basically doing the same thing?
It's the same thing. It's not different because they're girls.
You wanted to slow down because she's too dangerous right now. She might make you work harder than you're used to, harder than you want to.
What would you call that?
A big part of the boom that women's boxing has been seeing the last few years is because the fights are seemingly easier to make for the women than they are for the men. But this kind of attitude, being selective like this,
It's counterintuitive.
and you don't even have to cross over to Matchroom. Eddie Hearn said he'd be willing to send Beatrice to you, and you still don't want it.
What's helped to grow the sport of women's boxing is that when push came to shove, a lot of the girls were willing to take the risks. Carolyn is not willing to, so she's not as big and bad as she lets on, clearly.
Men's junior middleweight news. Robert Garcia says that Jaron Ennis is to blame for Virgil Ortiz Jr. fight not happening. Trainer Robert Garcia believes Jaron Boots Ennis' team felt it was too dangerous to move up straight into a fight with Virgil Ortiz, leading to the breakdown of their much-anticipated bout. Ennis and Ortiz were reportedly negotiating a clash at 154 on the undercard of the rematch between Artur Beterbiev and Dimitri Bivol in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia on February 22nd, but the fight fell through. Philadelphia's Ennis, who holds the IBF title at welterweight, was expected to move up to challenge WBC interim champion Ortiz of Dallas. Robert Garcia, however, refused to blame the weight difference between the fighters as the main reason for the failure of the bout to happen. We were ready to fight. Virgil is a fighter. He doesn't say no to any fight, Garcia told Boxing Scene. So when we were told that he was going to fight Boots, we were happy. We were excited about that fight. We were ready for that fight. But in the end, it wasn't Virgil. It was Boots' team, Matchroom, whoever that pulled out. So it wasn't us. I really don't know what happened. I don't know why he decided not to fight, because in his last fight, he said he was moving up in weight, and we were ready to fight him. But it looked like he decided not to.
The reason given was that Boots wanted to stay at welterweight a while longer, long enough to unify titles there. That's what they said.
Which I was actually okay with. I understood. But it doesn't help Boots' situation that his father is still bumping his gums. He's still running his jibs, saying this and that.
A lot of controversy over the whole Boots Ortiz thing. Any message for anybody who was talking
No,
crap?
I don't even want to talk about that because we never really discussed that. I never they never talked to me about it. So I mean, and then you listen to some of the stuff that people were saying. They don't even. A lot of people didn't know nothing about it. See, what they took wrong was after we fought that fight. Who said he might have to move up, but he still wanted to, take care of 147 first. But then they go on and say that, oh yeah, we got the fight signed and all. We didn't know nothing about that. I didn't know nothing about it. You know what I mean? So eventually he gonna get it too. You know what I mean? Eventually he gonna get it if he get one of them titles up there. He gonna get it too. I like them. I like all of them when they run their mouth, man. See, we don't do too much talking. We do our talking in the ring. His trainers and all of them, you know what I mean? I don't talk like that.
That recent soundbite from Bozy Ennis brings this conversation back to the forefront to revisit what happened, what actually happened, and by all accounts, it looks like Boots turned the fight down. Ennis is instead headed for a unification fight on April 12th with WBA welterweight champion Eimantas Stanionis, who coincidentally was scheduled to fight Virgil Ortiz back in 2023 before the fight was canceled multiple times. As part of preparations for the Madrimov fight, Garcia said he led Ortiz to a training camp in London. Garcia said he anticipates a very technical fight between Ortiz and Madrimov. Both fighters are going to put up a great fight. Madrimov is a great fighter. He had a great fight with Crawford, very close fight, so we can't look past Madrimov. We've got to focus on Madrimov right now, and after the fight, if everything goes well, then we'll think about future fights. Garcia said the junior middleweight division was blessed with a lot of great fighters that can offer Ortiz the kind of competition he needs. Garcia said Ortiz was willing to face any of the current champions at 154, Sebastian Fundora, Terence Crawford, Bakram Murtazaliev, or former unified champion Jermel Charlo. There are a lot of options. There's a lot of big fights out there. Personally, these are all big fights for Virgil, so I would love to have those fights.
At 154, Virgil has so many good fights he could have that Boots is an afterthought.
Though what has kept this conversation alive, in all honesty, is Bozy Ennis. Goes shooting off at the mouth, and it more or less forces people to revisit what happened. And what happened, by all accounts, is you turned the Ortiz fight down. So don't try to save face now. Just let sleeping dogs lie and let it be forgotten.
You're fighting Stanionis, he's fighting Madrimov.
Those are very good distractions for a fight that did not materialize. The fight between Ortiz and Boots. Somebody just needs to pull Bozy to the side and tell him to stop talking about it. Media asks you questions, just focus on what you are doing, who you are fighting.
Simple.
Virgil's got his own problems. He doesn't need to get all caught up in the he said, she said with a welterweight.
Madrimov.
Israel Madrimov, a guy who most are interpreting as a potential banana skin for Virgil Ortiz. A bona fide 154-pounder like the last guy that he fought. Guy that he's durable, he's strong, he's crafty, well-schooled, a standout amateur, a former champion, albeit for a short while.
So at the time that Virgil Ortiz accepted this fight, he was under the impression that Israel would be facing Sergey Bohachuk, then him, presumably if he won the Bohachuk fight.
Needless to say, the Bohachuk fight didn't happen. Israel was quote-unquote sick. He fell ill, pulled out of the Bohachuk fight, but he's going ahead with the Ortiz fight. And I saw Sergey Bohachuk say that he didn't feel Virgil Ortiz's power, that Virgil isn't a big puncher. That's what Sergey Bohachuk said. Sergey's going with Israel to win the fight. What to make of that? This is not a Golden Boy promotion show they're going to be fighting on. Virgil is not the house fighter going into this fight like he was going into the Sergey Bohachuk fight. Another instance where a Golden Boy Promotions fighter will be facing a matchroom fighter, like what we saw with Dmitry Bivol and Zurdo Ramirez. Similar style matchup, too. Pressure fighter versus a bouncy guy, fleet of foot guy, on his toes, moving in and out. We saw that fight. It was the matchroom fighter that had their hand raised. Will it be the matchroom fighter this time? And what is Virgil's fourth fight above the welterweight limit, but only his second fight with a bona fide junior middle?
The first two guys that he fought after he moved up from welter, Frederick Lawson,
Thomas Dulorme. You can't read much into those fights because those guys ain't bona fide junior middles. Now, Sergey Bohachuk, he was. And Sergey's the guy that Virgil didn't stop.
didn't knock him out.
The repercussions. You can expect whoever wins this fight to give chase to Sebastian Fundora shortly after, because the winner of this fight will be WBC interim champion.
And he's got the full WBC title. This fight is more than just an acid test for Virgil.
Things are going to get very interesting in a short while. And super middleweight news, Canelo rejects Benavidez fight over disrespect. Don't need to give them the money.
Fueling my suspicions that a part of the reason Canelo don't give them the time of day is out of spite. Sheer spite.
Canelo Alvarez explained why he would not fight David Benavidez, saying that the Mexican monster had been disrespectful to him. The pair were linked with a fight when Canelo was the undisputed super middleweight champion. Benavidez was the WBC interim super middleweight champion, making him the mandatory for the fight. He had been in that position for about 2 years. However, the WBC did not enforce the mandatory position.
I said they wouldn't.
But they also did not strip Canelo. Alvarez used this position by demanding $150 to $200 million for the fight.
Said it before and I'll say it again. That's inaccurate. He didn't demand anything. He made a suggestion, and you guys are misrepresenting that suggestion.
The perception was that Canelo priced himself out of the fight to remove any narrative that he was ducking. Benavidez eventually moved up to light heavyweight. That has made the fight less likely since Benavidez may struggle to move back down to 168. Benavidez can also get into a mandatory position at 175 if he beats David Morrell this weekend, putting him in line for an undisputed shot at 175. Reports indicate that Canelo will likely fight in May, followed by a bout in September. But Canelo has said that the fight could still happen if Benavidez shows more respect. Meanwhile, he has also talked up a possible fight with Terence Crawford.
Canelo is said to have entered into a 3-fight deal with Turki El Sheikh. We don't know who the first fight is going to be, but the second could be Terence Crawford. In September, who's going to be the third?
Could it be David Benavidez? Canelo said when somebody approaches you like that and calls you out like that, you don't need to give them any money. At this point, I fought with all the champions and all the best out there. I can do whatever I want now, and I don't like the way he approached to get the fight. I think he's wanted the fight, and he's been respectful. I want Canelo. Yeah, people want to see the fight, and maybe they'll see the fight. We don't know. Maybe they'll see the fight. I'm always open to good fights. He's a really good fighter with good abilities and everything, and maybe we'll see that fight. We don't know yet.
We don't.
But it sounds like Canelo is leaving the door open for that fight. Should David Benavidez take care of business this weekend, and should Canelo take care of business in his next two fights? If he doesn't,
If Crawford beats him, there could be a rematch.
Canelo has been linked with a fight against William Scull next. Scull is the IBF super middleweight champion. Canelo was on course to face Scull when he was his IBF mandatory, but Canelo chose to face Edgar Berlanga instead. Canelo was stripped of his IBF title as Scull won the vacant title. That fight gives Canelo the chance to become undisputed again at 168. Scull is desperate to get that fight, meaning Canelo cannot afford to overlook him. Scull is undefeated and desperate to prove his worth against the best.
Another boring Cuban fighter.
Maybe this was not the moment, and Canelo said, let's leave the Cuban now that he's not very well known. Let's see if he becomes world champion. If he becomes champion, let's unify. That's one of the things I think maybe for me. As a business, it's great to become world champion and then unify with Canelo. That way I make different history. The truth is, I would like to make a fight now. It didn't happen now. Maybe it can happen in a few years down the road, Scull stated.
At least one guy who's targeting William Scull is Edgar Berlanga.
And we'll see if he gets him. The bottom line is, Canelo Alvarez may see action at least one more time before he faces Terence Crawford. He's got to fight somebody.
That's not why we're here, though.
No, the focus of this conversation is Canelo basically saying he's not giving David the fight out of spite.
That's what I thought.
You got guys, they pursue a fight, they start saying this and that, and that's the way the game is played. But Canelo's looking at the bottom line. Why should I give this prick the payday? Why should I give him the opportunity when he's going out of his way to disrespect me?
Screw that. I'm gonna make him sweat. Maybe I don't give him the fight. Maybe I do, but I make him wait.
I make him sweat because he's not in the driver's seat, and neither is any alphabet organization. I'm in the driver's seat. I'm the money. I call the shots, and I don't like the way you're talking to me.
Oh, I know that many of David Benavidez's fans aren't going to like that. Of course not. And there are some more neutral boxing fans that won't like that stance either.
But you can't please everybody, and I think Canelo understands that better than most. Better than most people realize.
He's flexing. I just got out there with Edgar Berlanga, who everybody favored me to beat, and I still sold 650,000 pay-per-views.
I don't need nobody, because I'm the money, and you need to understand that.
A lot of people don't. I still get guys coming up to me about Benavidez versus Canelo.
Which at this point just seems like a hard cope. Your guy is very close to fighting for undisputed at another weight, and all you want to talk about is Canelo.
Still riding that scooter?
It's what I've been saying. It's what I thought. It's out of spite.
You don't think so. But who gives a damn what you think?
Not Canelo, that's for sure.